I was scrolling through Instagram the other day when I noticed this post about rock climbing competitions that pissed a lot of people off.
There was a slab in the semifinal in Salt Lake that no one did. And people in the chat were like, oh, the slab was too hard. And I talked to the chief and he was like, the slab was V6. Nobody decided to trust the foot they had to trust to lean across to do the rock over to do the boulder. It's like the boulder wasn't that hard. They just collectively as a group didn't do their job.
Now for context, this is a slab boulder from an IFSC World Cup that nobody topped, and usually if 0 athletes top a boulder, it means that boulder was too hard. The route setter's done fucked up. But in this instance, the route setter has spoken out on Instagram saying the route setters didn't mess up. The rock climbers messed up. He's saying that they just didn't trust the foot on the slab boulder, right? You gotta trust that foot, it's slab. Everybody knows that. What are you, stupid? And when I first saw this, I thought, yeah, that makes sense, right? You gotta trust that foot, right? Just weight that foot a little bit more, pull through and you're good to go. It looks easy. I mean, according to the setter, it's only a V6 slab. Even I can climb V6 slab. But then I saw the comments. Impact Route Setting says, this is such a weird way of deflecting any criticism. Pretend the boulder was actually easy, and all the best climbers in the world were at fault. No, it wasn't V6. Yes, it was too hard if nobody did it. Gutter Stream says, wait, so some of the best climbers out there couldn't do their V6, and the answer is to blame them for not doing their jobs. It couldn't have been the route setters. They're perfect. Maya Sounds says, I find the idea of 20 climbers collectively deciding not to trust the foot a bit absurd. To quote Magnus, V6 my ass. That slab was not V6. Crying emoji. That one was from Colin Duffy, one of the guys competing in that same competition. Not to keep harping on this, but one of my favorite replies to Colin's post was somebody said, look bub, it's V6. The world knows it. The average climber could do it. The top 20 climbers in the world just couldn't understand the climb. Duh. So clearly the boulder was a bit harder than it looked on camera, and this is actually a pretty common phenomenon. This is not just limited to this one incident. Not only do average climbers on the internet regularly say that certain IFSC World Cup boulders are easy, but they even went as far in the 2021 rock climbing Olympic Games to say that boulder number 1 was so easy that they could do it themselves. Now, having never competed in a formal rock climbing competition myself, I decided I want to see for myself just how hard it was to send one of these V6 slabs in 4 minutes. And thankfully, my local gym, Climb Time Oakley in Cincinnati, Ohio, recently had a big rock climbing competition with an IFSC style final. My plan was simple, try all 4 finals boulders in 4 minutes each, with limited rest in between. And for a little bit of clarity, I decided to focus mostly on the women's final because there is a 0% chance I can do any of the men's final boulders. I competed in the comp itself and didn't even make it to the finals, so I'm pretty certain about that. So let's find out just how hard competitive rock climbing really is, starting with boulder number 1. All right, so gym problems are up, the comp is over. I have not tried any of the women's problems. We're gonna try 1 through 4, 4 minutes each. It's gonna be a good time. I can already tell I'm probably not gonna get any. I might get 1. I'll be happy if I get 1, but we'll see. Right off the bat, I was a little disheartened because the first boulder, women's 1, is a slab boulder. And for those of you that don't know this, it should be generally assumed, but I'll tell you anyway, I hate slab. Now, there are a plethora of valid reasons why somebody might hate slab, okay? And I'll just tell you a few of my own right now. Number 1, it's dangerous. The whole fun of climbing in a gym is that it's safe. You can fall anywhere on any boulder and you're gonna land on a pad. You know that the only thing you're gonna hit is a pad. But when you're climbing slab, all that you know is that the last thing you're gonna hit is the pad. You could hit any number of things on the way down. Climbing slab is a lot like soliciting a prostitute. You're scared the whole time, and if you do finish, you just feel bad about yourself after. Anyway, moving on to the climb, once my 4 minutes started, you can see that I had a bit of trouble establishing in the start position, and that's because there was only 1 hold to start with. No, not 1 hand hold to match, but 1 hold in general for both hands in both feet. Are you starting to feel me now, why I hate slab so much? Now, the start wasn't actually all that hard, and I did get established after a while and start working my way through the boulder, and you think, okay, I made it up to the top hold, now I just gotta move out left onto this big volume, giant foothold, it should all be good from here. But it's not. Because in typical slab climbing fashion, there are no handholds. Not a single one anywhere in the middle of this boulder. And I tried to do what I assumed was the intended beta by just rocking onto the left foot, much like the video we just watched, but I found myself unable to do the move. Now, normally this wouldn't be that big of a deal, right? Just keep trying to move a couple times, you'll probably get it. But that's the whole problem with the 4-minute format. I only had like a minute left at this point, so I did the greasiest dirtbag thing you can ever do, and I used the bolt hole to get up and around this volume to get onto it so I could establish the zone just to get a point. And that's what slab does to you, okay? The slab turns you into the most degenerate, soulless form of yourself. It's a degenerate style of climbing for degenerate people. And once I established the zone, I assumed I'd be able to just get to the finish pretty easily. I mean, it's right there. It's like 2 feet to the left. But as in typical slab fashion, it was impossible. I tried every different combination of moves I could think of to find a way to match this finish hold, even after the time expired, because I was so frustrated, and I couldn't even get close. I have no idea how you're supposed to do that finish. That's absolutely crazy. So with the time on boulder number 1 expired, I now had 1 zone and 0 tops on what I assumed to be around a V5 boulder, which is still better than I thought I would do if I'm being honest. And with a pretty strong start on my least favorite style of climbing, it was time to move on to boulder 2. But before we talk about women's boulder number 2, we need to talk about your fingers. Are you sitting watching the video right now like, what is this guy doing? These boulders are so easy. He just needs to wake the left foot more. That's like V6. Well, guess what? You're probably right. And if you want to be stronger than me, if you want to send every comp boulder, you got to train them fingers. You got to get stronger fingers. Thankfully, today's video is sponsored by Frictitious. They make the best frickin' hangboards in the whole frickin' planet. Frictitious hangboards are not only the best hangboards around, but they also come with doorway mounts. That's right. That means you don't have to drill your hangboard into your wall or put it in a permanent location where you can never move it again without leaving big old holes in the wall. Frictitious hangboards come with the Frictitious doorway mount, which allows you to hang these hangboards on any doorway within reason. I myself have put my Frictitious hangboard and doorway mount in my homemade shitty doorway in my basement, and no matter how much I tug, rub, yank, and anything I want to do on that hangboard, it's not coming down. On top of that, Frictitious has multiple different hangboard options for your needs. If you want something a little fancy, something a little crazy, something a little wacky, they got everything you need. And as of right now, Frictitious is doing a special offer. If you buy any hangboard of your choosing and bundle it with a doorway mount, you get free US shipping, a free bag of chalk, and free installation. That means that they put the hangboard on the mount. They're not going to bring it to your house and hang it on your doorway for you, you lazy piece of. So click the link in the description, check out the Frictitious hangboard and doorway mounts today. Get yourself a bundle, get yourself some cool stuff, free installation of your hangboard onto your doorway mount. You got to put it up on the doorway yourself, still have a good time, still hangboard, still get stronger fingers. Thank you, Frictitious, for sponsoring this video. Now let's move on to women's boulder number 2. All right, I'm gonna move on to, it's been about 10 minutes, took a break. I'm gonna move on to the next one. It looks like it's a dyno. I'm pretty excited about that. I think the one I was just on the slab was probably on like a V5, which is kind of embarrassing. So hopefully this one goes a little bit better. So my initial plan was to climb for 4 minutes, take a 4-minute break, then move on to the next boulder. But after the first boulder, I was like, fuck that, 4 minutes is way too short. Even 10 minutes felt too short for me. I usually take like 20 minutes on a boulder, and that's just in between attempts. My routine is more of a touch the boulder, take a 20-minute break. Try the boulder, take another 20-minute break. Then you send the V3. Unfortunately, I did not have this luxury, and looking at boulder number 2, the first thing I noticed was it looked to be like a pretty big dyno, which had me a little bit worried, but I figured, you know, that's my bread and butter. If I can't do the finals dyno, I'm probably not gonna be able to do any of the boulders anyway. Holy, that's rough. So I was initially a little bit concerned after my first attempt. This dyno felt impossibly hard. I felt nowhere close to doing it, which didn't really make any sense, seeing as how I've literally won some pretty competitive dyno competitions in the past. And so when I took a minute to look at the boulder again, I realized I had completely missed a huge handhold on the left, which is another point as to why the 4-minute time crunch of sending a boulder is just fucking annoying and hard. And now that I had this new hold to do the dyno with, I immediately started reprojecting the boulder, trying to figure out how to just at least get to the zone hold to get some points. And the thing I kind of realized in retrospect of making this video is how much quicker 4 minutes go by when you're the one climbing. When you're watching it, it can be like dreadfully boring to watch somebody climb for 4 minutes or try to figure out a boulder. It feels like an eternity goes by. When you're the one climbing, it feels like really quick. It feels like no time at all, okay? You don't have any time to actually figure out what you're doing. In this instance, by the time I think I figured out how to get to the zone, I had less than a minute left. I put one final attempt in, and the flying heel hook stuck, and I managed to get the zone. But, unfortunately, everything after the zone hold was insanely difficult, and I didn't get any further than that. All right, so we got the zone again. I don't know if my mic's on, it is. Got the zone again, pretty good. Flying heel hook was the way to go. I think I was just too weak to do that one, honestly. It's too tiring. that big move up. I didn't have the finger strength to hold it. We'll see how this goes. I'm already pretty tired, and I still have 2 more. My fingers kind of hurt from that one. I'd say the first one, the V5, is probably, or I thought about V5. I think the second one's probably like a V7, maybe V6, V7. They might both be about V6, I don't know, but haven't really seen the third one at all yet. And the fourth one looks brutal, so we'll see.
So with boulder number 2 complete, I now had 2 zones and 0 tops. I was really hoping for at least 1 top, but I wasn't gonna complain about having 2 zones. I was worried I might not get any zones in the first place, and it was time to move on to boulder number 3. So I realized during my second break that I was not a big fan of this already. I was already starting to lose confidence. I was exhausted, and I was taking breaks twice as long as what I said I was gonna take in the first place. And needless to say, I lost a little bit of that confidence I had going into this, all right? I didn't have the same chutzpah I did when I walked in. But I tried to amp myself up a bit looking at this boulder, right? It really didn't look that hard. It looked by far to be the easiest boulder. Getting up to the undercling did look a bit difficult, but from the undercling, the zone hold, up to the finish, it just looked like a classic huck to a move up to a big jug. No big deal. And once I actually got on the boulder, it turns out it was extremely easy. I was pleasantly surprised. It was a very easy boulder. Until it wasn't. Because as it turned out, this was just basically another slab boulder. And I really tried to give 100% and really trust the feet, and I did manage to make it up to the zone on my first try. It was my first zone flash, but once I got to the zone, there was really nowhere to go. I could not figure out in any way how I would possibly get my feet up to use the undercling that was above me as an actual fucking undercling. And it's not that the hold was bad, it was a pretty solid hold, it's just that it was above me, and it's an undercling. I'm not supposed to be below the undercling is supposed to be under me. That's why it's called an undercling, it's not an overcling. That's your mom. Anyway, this is just me rambling because I didn't get any further than this. I spent the whole 4 minutes trying to find any way to get my feet up, couldn't figure it out, and just had to move on. So after boulder number 3, we now had 3 zones and 0 tops. My guess for this one was that it was probably around V7, that's what it felt like to me at the time, but it was hard to say since I saw no way of moving past the zone hold. But it's time to move on to boulder number 4. By the time I finished my third break and moved on to boulder number 4, I was completely exhausted just after 12 minutes of climbing, but I did get a bit of a second wind. I felt a bit revitalized by my failures, and I really did think I had a chance of sending women's 4, despite the fact that it was a pretty hard-looking overhang boulder with an entire fucking kayak bolted to the wall. I realized that this was my last boulder, my last chance to get a send, and I gave it every last little bit of gas I had in the tank.
This is an iffy finish, but fuck me, dude. Like, by gym standards, I think that counts, right? That was like at least 3 seconds. By comp standards, did I establish control? Probably not, so I'm not gonna count it. I tried it again, couldn't even get on the sloper, so could have had a good flash there. Took too long, got tired. I'm gonna count that another zone.
Now, I was extremely close to counting this as a top. You have no idea how badly I wanted this to be a top, but upon reviewing the footage afterward, there was just no way you could ever say that this is establishing control on the finish hold. Counting this as a top is like counting Tom Brady's incomplete pass in the 2001 playoffs against the Oakland Raiders. It was a fumble. And what was even more frustrating is this boulder felt like it was probably a V6, maybe a V7, which is not a grade I typically flash. So I felt like I really did give it my all and have a pretty good effort on it, and I just had no energy left to repeat it. And with time expired and the women's finals boulders all complete, my official score was 4 zones and 0 tops. A score that would almost guarantee a loss in any official rock climbing competition. And while my hopes of having a career as a women's competition rock climber were shattered, I still wanted to try the men's boulders. I'll go through them really quick because I did not do very well, surprisingly. Men's one was another slab boulder. I didn't really have too much issues getting on the start. It was a pretty chill start, but the first hold that you have to grab on the boulder was nothing. It was just a piece of something round that the route setters bolted into the wall. I did still make a little bit of progress within the 4-minute time window by just death gripping this hold using no technique whatsoever. And after getting pretty close to actually getting the zone hold, I thought, that'd be pretty cool to get a zone hold within 4 minutes on a men's final boulder. So I spent as much time as I could brushing these holds, getting them in the best condition possible for my final attempt.
That was 7 minutes.
I would like to say that in a professional comp, somebody else would be brushing those holds for me. You think I'm gonna get up, brush my own holds? If I was a professional rock climber, the first thing I would do is make sure I never brushed a hold again. But this was a good, valuable lesson for me, right? That time goes by pretty quick no matter what you're doing in 4 minutes. So having missed my opportunity to zone the boulder within the time limit, I moved on to men's 2, which I could not get on the start of. And the entire time I was on this boulder, I couldn't help but think, if I was in a competition actively right now, like on the big stage, IFSC, like 10,000 people watching, what am I talking about? It's IFSC, 15 people watching, and I'm just fumbling around on the start of this boulder, trying to desperately just say that I got on the start. That would be humiliating, which is another big thing to factor in here in this 4-minute competition climbing format thing. There's a mental game to be played here as well. It's not all just physical. Keeping your wits about you when everyone's watching you stumble and fumble and fail to even get on the start of a boulder is kind of hard. Thankfully, I did manage to establish the start, and I found out I was supposed to do a Gaston up to this hold instead of crossing over like I was trying to do, and then I fell anyway. And to me, that was the worst case scenario. That was the exact thing I was worried about happening, which is why I didn't want to do the men's boulders in the first place. But it actually wasn't the worst case scenario, because when I went to do men's 3 after a substantial break, I couldn't even get on the start. So I made the executive decision to just quit and not even try the boulder anymore. I took the extra recovery time, which probably not something you can do in an IFSC comp, but people can't laugh at you if you're not there. And moving on to men's boulder number 4, this turned out to be my favorite boulder in the comp. You start in the cave on some pretty wonky holds, turn backwards, you spin around, grab this big thing. You gotta move your entire body around this big volume sticking out of the wall. And it's a lot harder than it looks, but I did manage to get the zone on my first try before almost ripping my nipple off trying the dyno. You'll notice in every clip after this one when I'm trying this dyno, I have a shirt on for obvious reasons. And this dyno was actually really cool. I didn't manage to stick it while filming this video. The hold you're catching was just horrible. I even tried climbing into it and just hanging on it, and I could barely do that, so I don't know how I was supposed to catch it for a dyno. If for some reason I get it before I finish editing this video, I'll put it in here. I really hope there's something here right now for the edit. Now, one thing I failed to mention about the men's boulders is the same day I did the women's comp, so I was pretty tired as me doing the exact same thing over again. But I did try all these boulders again later the next week. Didn't really make any progress except for men's number 2, which not only did I make a good amount of progress on, but I almost got the send. So what I learned so far up to this point was how hard rock climbing was in a 4-minute time crunch, but I didn't really have a comparison. The only experience I had on these boulders was in the 4-minute comp climbing format. So the next week I decided to go back and project each one of these boulders to find out how hard they really were. And it turned out the women's one was just as hard. It was miserable. It turns out the route setter said it was about V5, so I was right about that. But that didn't necessarily make me feel better because I feel like I should probably be able to do a V5 slab boulder. Now that being said, apparently Colin Duffy can't do a V6 slab boulder, so I'm really only like 1 grade behind him. Moving on to women's boulder number 2, I did project this one a pretty good amount, probably 2 entire sessions I spent projecting this. Turns out it was a V7 according to the route setters, which makes sense. V7 is definitely not a flash grade for me, and it took me a pretty long time to dial in all these moves in the upper section. They felt much closer to V8 to me, but after putting in my blood, sweat, and tears, this happened. Now, if we're going to talk about women's boulder number 3, I spent over a week projecting this boulder. I do not understand why it was so hard for me to figure out the beta. I just refused to try anything different than this idea I had in my head of how to do it. And as soon as I tried to do a mantle, which was an idea I had earlier on that I just decided not to really put any effort into, that was the beta. And this was another pretty big learning moment for me, because when I actually went for the send go, the entire boulder really didn't feel that hard. This is genuinely probably just a V6, which is what the route setter said. I agree with that. It is not that hard of a boulder, even though I spent more time on it than any other boulder. This really was just an example of how important having the right beta is, and actually just trying different beta instead of bashing your head in the wall over and over again trying the same thing. Now, women's boulder number 4 is pretty interesting because this is the furthest I got on any boulder in the comp format, and after the competition, when I was going back and just goofing around, I was able to repeat it multiple times, and I even managed to campus almost the entire boulder, which is not only funny because I didn't get the send in the comp, but it's also funny that I can campus a V6 comp boulder, but I can't do a V5 slab boulder. So I think the biggest things I learned about this comp climbing format is just how hard it is to accurately assess a boulder and climb said boulder in 4 minutes. Even if you climb at a grade that's higher or equal to that boulder, it's still going to seem much harder. But on the flip side, at least for me, it did feel like I performed better on these boulders than I normally would in 4 minutes outside of a competition. And so to answer the question of the video, is comp climbing as easy as it looks? No, it's not. If a boulder looks easy, it's probably hard, and if a boulder looks hard, it's also probably hard. They're all probably pretty hard boulders. And I do think there's some merit to what that guy said at the beginning of the video. I know some of you guys are gonna be mad that I'm calling him that. I don't know. That's Dolph Flinkenton. He's one of the biggest route setters in the industry. I don't know everybody's fucking name, okay? But to give the guy a little bit of credit, I do think there's some merit to what he said. Sometimes, you know, being in that moment, you only have 4 minutes, you might try a few different things, try to find a way to get through it and miss an obvious solution. And to take away from his credit, that was not a V6 slab boulder. That was a stupid thing to say. I also just want to point out too that people are excessively mean to this guy on Instagram. Oh, it was completely unwarranted. There's definitely, when you say stuff and put it out to the world on the internet, you're gonna say stupid things sometimes or be misconstrued sometimes, and people take that shit very seriously. Seems like a alright dude, like a cool dude. I think the only thing he really said in that video that was dumb was that it was V6, which I say shit like that all the time. I'm remembering now, he did also say that they didn't do their jobs. That was poor choice of words, but don't go get on the Instagram or whatever and say anything mean to the guy. Just a guy talking on the internet. It's not that big of a deal. I do it all the time. Say the mean stuff to me instead. I think it's funny. Anyway, that's it for the video. I hope you guys had a good time. For those of you that watch regularly and give a shit, sorry I haven't been uploading very much regularly. I've been having a lot of fun doing some kind of big crazy videos. I have a lot of videos I've been working on for way too long. I've been trying to up the production value, so I thought I'd put this video out, a fun little video of me doing some comp boulders. Moving forward, I'll try to upload more than once a month. Anyway, that's it for the video. Thank you guys for watching. Remember, click the link in the description, check out the fictitious hangboards, get any hangboard you want, bundle it with the doorway mount, get a bunch of other free stuff, free installation of your hangboard onto your doorway mount. You can put it up yourself. See you guys next time.